Welcome to Close the Door and Come Here, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast with heavy leanings towards our two favorite characters, Jaime and Brienne. Hi, everyone. Today we will be covering Jon IV from A Dance with Dragons. If you're joining us for the first time, we do spoil everything, books and potentially show. I don't think we have to worry about trigger warnings, which is always a fun time. And I'm Kama, and you can find me at Kama's Place on Blue Sky. And today I'm joined by Devin.
Hey, I'm Devin. You can find me at GD Harpo on Blue Sky.
And Chicky.
Hey, I am Chicky, and I am Chicky on Blue Sky.
So we open up with Jon, Dolores Ed, and Bowen Marsh inspecting the stores that are located underneath Castle Black. There's all kinds of storage, and it sounds like they've got the equivalent of essentially a deep freeze, where the uncured meat is stored. It's just because they're surrounded by ice, and it's the natural. It does sound like some of the meat is pretty freezer burned, but
Yeah, I love how he's like, there's hoarfrost on it, and I'm like, ooh, that's thick. That does not sound tasty.
Like at all, and like just the way the wall works is so incredible that they just, like you said, they just have a deep freezer down there I just love the magic of it and how this all works.
Not least because it's kind of weird that it actually is frozen underground. I mean, that's the kind of cool thing about going deeper underground when you're in very cold places is you get lower and like it's cool, but it's not freezing. So it is actually interesting that it even is frozen under there. It's fascinating.
And as someone, it's funny because the whole discussion of I'm addicted to this game called The Long Dark, where basically you are in an apocalyptic Canada and you're trying to survive, and you are concerned with things like food and spoilage and scurvy, which they are very much concerned with as well, although they're not calling it scurvy, but that's what they're describing. Bowen is really concerned because even though it looks like there is a ton of stuff, he's like, this would last us 3 years if we rationed, but that was all of those calculations were based on the number of men they have. They were not planning on Stannis's entire court and troops and all these wildlings. Also, they don't have, there are no more limes. They were using limes to come, for the vitamin C, essentially. And they don't have enough fresh meat. So that's going to be a thing. And Jon suggests, they're going to cut the rations by 25%. And then they talk about, could they buy food from the South? But Jon's like, we don't have the gold. And then you have to get people willing to sell you the food.
Exactly. I mean, the fact that they are even discussing already having to cut the rations before winter is actually hit is a really good sign of just how bad it is. And how they're oh, we would have 3 years worth if not for this.
If not for this. Yeah. And he even thinks my brothers, they may love me now or like me now, but what about when I cut their portions? Then what happens?
Yeah. But he's right. They can't, you can't not feed the king and his people. He's just going to take the stuff from you. It's not like they have enough people to stop that. So it's sort of they're in a real pickle there. He gets summoned to go meet with Stannis, and we see they call them the Wrong Way Rangers. Justin Massey and Richard Horp, are there. Also, Rattleshirt, who is now sporting some sort of giant ruby on his wrist.
Dun, dun, dun.
Always fun to read when you know.
I know.
And Stannis basically gives Rattleshirt to him, and Jon is like, yeah, I know this is a bad idea. And apparently Mel has somehow bound him with this enchantment. I really don't understand it, but I don't think we're meant to.
Well, yeah, I had kind of forgotten this, how she's he can't betray us while I've got this gem on him, which is crazy. I did not remember that at all.
Yeah, it's sort of nutso. But there's this whole discussion. It's also there's a bunch of the Queen's men in there, and they're discussing what to do because apparently some of the Umbers are interested in bending the knee, and Stannis wants the lowdown, the skinny on these guys. And we learned that this guy named Moors, nicknamed Crowfoot Umber, who's one of the Great John's uncles, is willing to swear fealty, but he wants some things. Particularly, he wants a pardon for his brother. I'm not making this up. Horsbane, who has declared for Bolton, and we also learn about the five. There's 5 houses that have basically declared for the Boltons, and their house Hornwood. I think it's pronounced Cowan, Tallheart, Riswell, and Dustin. And like Jon says, okay, the Riswells and the Dustins are related by marriage. And he's like, the first 3 no longer have lords associated with them. He's not sure who's in charge now, but that's probably why. And he does say you should ally with the Umbers. And he also says the Horsebane is probably with the Boltons because the Lannisters have the Great John captive. Sorry.
Yeah, I kind of love this, how Stannis is kind of trying to pick through how the houses in the north relate to one another, basically. And, he's like, okay, well, the uncle obviously wants to take over. And Jon is clearly like, no, not necessarily. You don't necessarily understand anything about what's going on here.
Yeah, and it's kind of, it is very much, and Jon is trying to straddle this, I think, this fine line between he's not supposed to be taking sides here.
Right. Exactly.
He keeps thinking it, in the vow, we take no, whatever the actual vow says, he just keeps thinking that throughout the chapter. And keeps getting further in.
Well, it also somehow reminds me of you'll be, I don't know, in some you could be in a certain geographic part of the world, or you could be in a meeting with someone who from the outside who's about to do something that will just, destroy the entire fabric of your workplace. And you have to explain, this is why this is a bad idea,
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. And what's funny is, Jon clearly knows so much, and this is a very good showcase for Jon's, strategic abilities. This whole chapter is, but at the same time, we will know later on, even Jon doesn't completely have a good bead on everything that he's going through here. It's a very good example of how even people from Westeros who've lived their whole lives in Westeros can kind of bumble around, and we're coming like fresh off a Dany chapter, and you think about Dany trying to navigate these things, without any of the tools to deal with it. And you're just like, oh my God, this is such a convoluted mess. It's no wonder that, we've had the crazy things happen that we've had happen. And so many people have died trying to rule these people because oh my God, it's just intrigue upon intrigue. And the funny thing is, as this chapter goes on, Jon digs even deeper down under the levels of the higher lords of the North into the petty lords or the clans or whatever. And even there's a whole labyrinth that you basically have to navigate in order to win their loyalty. And it's just oh my God, what a mess. What a mess no one could untangle.
And to the other thing I think that's at play here is it's always easier to advise than to be the one making the choices. Mm-hmm. So he does have a little bit of a remove, and, he can see things maybe that, when he's actually leading, he's maybe not making the best calls. And I think that's partly it. But it's a funny, these scenes are really funny. I really love the Stannis and Jon stuff. I really do.
I know. Well, we're glossing over some of the other funny stuff. We find out that Horsebane is obviously got that name because he killed a prostitute, but it was a male prostitute. And there are just these funny little things that you just don't expect, and you're getting them in Jon's head, and Jon is dry, and then Stannis is even drier. And so their interactions are really funny.
Well, and I kind of, there's just a lot. It's just funny, everyone has all these opinions, and finally Stannis is just he said, I'm here because he's there in case the wildlings attack the wall again, but that hasn't happened. So he feels he has to deal with those other enemies, specifically Ramsay and Roose Bolton. And again, Jon keeps going, I'm in the watch. I'm not supposed to be doing this. And Stannis has this idea, which probably sounds great on paper, which is he's got, while Ramsay is off with Moat Cailin, his plan is to basically take his men and take the Dreadfort. And Jon, who's just said he can't get involved, he's got to stay neutral, is just like, oh my God, no, do not do this.
It's like, oh, that'd be stupid.
This is a spectacularly bad idea. And he's like, first of all, you have to get the land you're going to have to go through is owned by the Umbers. They know it real well, and they're going to be onto you the minute you set foot. And then also that Ramsay's going to know what's going on, and he can cut you off, after he takes Moat Cailin. And there's Justin Massey going, oh, it won't fall that quickly. And he's like, okay, guys, even if you get through the last time somebody, tried to attack the Dreadfort, they stuck it out. It's a stone castle. They stuck it out for 2 whole years.
2 years. Yeah.
2 years. And that's with siege weapons, like, and things that can be like
and a siege by a Stark who would know what they were doing, presumably.
It wasn't like, the Prince of Dorne came up. It was the king in the north. So, and then Jon starts to realize to his horror that this is not just what Stannis' plan is, but Stannis also plans to take food, clothing, and arms, none of which they have to give. And then he's going to take the wildling men and put them in the vanguard. And again, there's Jon, like you said, Chicky, going deeper, going, okay, you can't do that because, Crowfoot, Umber's daughter, was literally carried off by the wildlings. There's this, deep-seated hatred between the two groups. This is going to, fail spectacularly. So
exactly that. This is you need somebody with local knowledge is basically what this comes down to. It's just like Stannis, you need a local guide.
And the underlying part is so much of it is that this, he's not the king. He's who showed up. He does have the claim, but he's not the actual king. This, it's just the deeper he goes, it's just worse and worse.
Well, and even if he was the king, though, I don't see this working
at all.
Yeah. And then Stannis throws everyone but Jon out, except, there's a couple other people. Devon is still there, the squire, and also Mel apparently doesn't leave.
Like that guy. Hope he lives.
I love
Yeah, no, it was so funny because we were talking about in the last recording that we did a Davos chapter, and I was trying to remember who it was that was the squire for Stannis. Yes, it's poor little Devon here. Davos is one of Davos's few remaining sons.
But and Stannis, he says that both Richard Horp and Justin Massey have their eye on Winterfell, which, that's wishful thinking. And also that Justin wants to marry Val, who Stannis persists in calling the wildling princess.
Oh my God.
And there's also this little tidbit in here that Richard Horp had once wanted to be in the King's Guard, but Cersei put a stop to it.
Yeah. I don't even remember hearing this guy's name before. Did I hear his name before this?
I don't even remember it. I know Justin Massey, but
Yeah, we all know Justin Massey. But Asha knows Justin Massey. We all know Justin Massey at this point, but yeah, I don't remember this Horp guy at all.
I feel like if he's mentioned, it's in passing, and I don't even think, I'm trying to see if he's in the
Yeah, I don't remember at all.
But anyhow, there's let me find my notes.
Thanks for naming him George and involving him here. We really needed to know his name, know that he wanted to be in the King's Guard. Yet another.
And he shows up in Clash, and he's slain in theory by somebody, and or he slays somebody in Storm, and I think but it's just minor stuff. But anyhow, Jon is Winterfell should be Sansa's, and I really love how Stannis persists in referring to her as Lady Lannister.
Oh God.
Um, and he says what he said before, you could be Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North. He's like, he's not going to give Winterfell to either Richard Horp or Justin Massey. No, he wants to give it to Arnulf Karstark. Um, it's just a whole thing. And there's this whole thing and like just basic misunderstanding about what's going on. And Stannis is like, no, I have to go ahead and attack the Dreadfort. We haven't heard from Davos. We don't know if he made it there, etc. I have to, he's like, he has to strike unless Jon is willing to ally with him as Lord of Winterfell. And Jon, meanwhile, is like, basically, they're trying to, he's also, I'm glossing over some stuff, but basically they want to raid the armory and take stuff. And Jon is like, it cannot happen. And he starts to bargain and he wants to keep the wildlings. And I'm going to read this little quote because I thought it was funny. This is Jon. To you, they are only arrow fodder. I can make better use of them upon the wall. Give them to me to do with as I will, and I'll show you a way to find your victory and men as well. Stannis rubbed the back of his neck. You haggle like a crone with a codfish, Lord Snow. Did Ned Stark father you on some fish wife? But basically, and I know this is very dense, but Jon is like, I can get you 2,000 to 3,000 men. And where he proposes Stannis get these men is to go to the mountain clans. So that's House Flint, Wall, Nori, Little, and there may be one or two others I'm missing. But he's like, you're going to have to go there. And they'll feast you, but you're going to have to ask. You can't command. And he offers to give Stannis guides to go, and not probably get slaughtered on his way to these places. He also warns Melisandre that her brand of religion is not going to work. That these people are even more into the old gods than the wildlings. But Melisandre is like, no, her place is at the wall. She'll be staying there, which shocks Jon. And then Jon says, you should attack. He's now full in. I mean, he is 100% advising at this point. He is taking a side. He suggests that they attack Deepwood Motte because it's I believe, a wooden castle. There's, it should be easy to take over. And Stannis likes this plan, and he's like. When Balon Greyjoy rose the first time, I beat the Iron Men at sea, where they are fiercest. On land, taken unawares, I have won a victory over the wildlings and their king beyond the wall. If I can smash the Iron Men as well, the North will know it has a king again. And I will have 1,000 wildlings, thought Jon, and no way to feed even half that number. And then we close.
Yeah. I feel like this whole chapter, the way that it's set up with Jon having to go and he's touring the stores and he's seeing, what their supply levels are and everything. It's creating all of this pressure on Jon. And part of the pressure is obviously that there are too many mouths to feed in Castle Black. But behind that is the fact that they will not be able to get through the winter on everything that they've got, and they're going to need help from somewhere. And even though Jon doesn't really have this conscious thought, you can see that he understands that probably their best bet is for Stannis to win.
Yeah.
And so there is it's not just that Jon, likes Stannis or whatever. Like, I think there is a genuine, okay, our best bet here, even though we can't get involved technically, is to try to make sure that Stannis has a chance to win at least the North so that they can all survive the winter, is basically, I think, what his calculus is at this point.
And he's not wrong, because honestly, he was the only king who showed up. Mm-hmm. The Lannisters 100% have no love for him. his best. I mean, even if there's a king who could, who would take over, who would be like ignoring them, that's not going to help them.
Well, more than anything, I think he's thinking about the North. And I
Yeah.
think he just thinks, obviously, the Boltons aren't going to do shit for the Night's Watch.
Well,
And
and he's aware of what's coming, right?
yes, yes.
It's not explicitly stated as a threat, but he knows.
Well, that's why he wants to keep the wildlings. He does know what's coming. And
Right, but I mean, it's not overt in the chapter, I guess.
no, it's not. You never see him think it, but you just kind of can tell the pressure is on him, and this is his solution: is to try to help Stannis as much as he can, and to try to help Stannis not to like basically blunder through everything. I don't know. This is fascinating. One of the interesting things to me here is like you're just kind of getting a concept of just how big the North is. That like he's talking about Jon says something about how it would be like 100 leagues that they would have to go through the Umberland to get to the Boltons, and isn't a league like 2 miles? So you're like talking about 200 miles of just the Umbers. And
It is 100 leagues
massive.
Is almost it's 345 miles.
Okay, yeah. Oh my God,
yeah,
that's
ridiculous.
Insane.
On horse. That's not them packing into SUVs. That's on horse and foot.
Oh God, these distances.
In hostile territory with people,
But yeah, it's just so massive, and I had actually forgotten about this bit with the mountain clans when he like offers that stand. It's like, hey, this is your best bet. I'd forgotten all about that because from what I remember, do we even see Stannis again after this?
Well, we do in the Winds sample chapter.
In the preview sample. Mm-hmm.
Do we see him in Ash's last chapter? Is that in this?
Yes.
I can't remember what's in the sample and what's in Dance.
I'm pretty sure we see him again in the book.
Yeah, I think it's in Asha. I think.
Yeah, because I think he shows up later. There's that stuff about Melisandre wanting to burn more people because they're not doing well, and he's like, pray harder. And I definitely know he and Asha interact.
Yeah, I think that's Asha's last couple of chapters.
Okay, that would make sense being in this book.
It's been a long time since I read Asha's chapters, but yeah, I think that's what happens. Because I know Asha has a bunch of interactions with Justin Massey, right?
Yes.
Don't they have kind of a rapport? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Well, anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
I look forward to reading them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sad that Jon and Stannis are breaking up the band, but you get the sense that this needs to happen. I mean, it's almost like this should have happened even a chapter ago. Starting to get Stannis out the door and on the way.
Certain doom, but yeah.
I mean, well, he was already doomed, so.
Did we have any mail?
Yes, we do have some mail. So, from our Runa on Tumblr, Ed is a delight. It had to be said before anything else. Also, poor Marsh is trying to do his job without calling his Lord Commander an idiot. Though, in Jon's defense, what good option do they have?
Like, Bowen Marsh is not wrong. Like, this is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe cutting the rations by more, but he'd have to explain the reasoning in a way that didn't get them hostile against the King's men and the wildlings. I kind of wonder, even if they hadn't had this going on, even if they didn't have the threat from the others, winters can last more than 3 or 4 years, correct?
Yeah, that was my first thought when they said they have enough, like, for 3 or 4 years. I'm like, well, there's no guarantee that's what the winter's going to be.
Yeah, because sometimes they're 7, I think 7 or 8. Is it 7 or 9 or something is the longest ever? And, yeah, I don't know what happens then. I don't think George has really, 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 really thought through what happens then.
Well, and maybe it's better he hadn't, because we might not have even had Dance.
Yeah.
I don't know what the solutions are. I mean, because unless Stannis can pony up with some money that they can get food from other places. But you got to assume that every other remaining house in the north is also concerned with the coming winter and their stores, and they're probably not going to want to, send them more. It's one of those things that really doesn't have a practical. I mean, there's no easy fix.
No easy fix for sure. So still from our room on Tumblr, how probable is it that George mentioned the Erie as a seed planter for possible Jon and Sansa team up? Because I personally would have gone with the Tyrells as their best hope for getting enough food, though perhaps that's too further south for the Watch.
Yeah, I'm assuming he picked the Erie because it was closer.
Yeah, I think the shipping lanes up from the Vale to White Harbor are probably their easiest way to get stuff, because if they go on the West Coast, they have to deal with whatever's going on with the Greyjoys, which I think he understands is a mess. And so I think he thinks probably the easiest and best way is their East Coast. I would imagine that is probably why he didn't really think it through, but I would imagine that's what it is. That, and clearly he's wondering if because I don't know, because Catelyn and Lysa were both Tullys, if that would be enough to help.
Oh,
I mean, even though they're both dead, but
and he even has a thought when he was a boy, like, I don't think she likes me much or something.
Yeah, I forgot he did have that thought, didn't he?
Yeah. So next question from Aruna. The separation between Rangers and Stewards is pretty interesting too. Do you think Jon is thinking too much like a Ranger? Who do you think should act as his reminder of the Stewards' point of view? Because they do have some good point, i.e. still there's not enough food.
I don't know that it's that he's thinking like a ranger. I think it's he's not. There's a certain level of managerial expertise he doesn't yet have. And that is communicating with your direct reports, right? So, going basically making it clear to Bowen that I understand what you're saying. I see the problem. We're on the same side. We have to, what do we, and just sort of getting him to work with him rather than be like, because I think Bowen Marsh feels ignored. And I think he feels that his concerns are not being heard.
I think there's an element too, like you said, of maybe being more openly communicative, because, and this can happen, anytime you're managing people. Sometimes people in kind of two separate areas are not really talking to each other, and neither one of them have the best concept of the whole overhead view that somebody who's in management actually has. And so you have somebody in one department who thinks one thing and somebody in another department who thinks something else, and they're like, why aren't we doing this? And the other one's, why aren't we doing that? And the truth is because the interests of those two departments maybe even directly opposed to one another, or have conflicting needs or whatever, and there's someone up above who's trying to meet the needs of both at the same time, basically. And with Jon, that's what's happening here. He's like, okay, Bowen Marsh, I know you think we need to just kick Stannis out, but you have no understanding of the broader political ramifications of that, or the immediate ramifications of that if Stannis decides to kill everybody. It's just kind of, Bowen Marsh in many ways just he does have deep understanding of the stewardship aspect here. He has a very shallow understanding of the overall picture, and I think that's what the situation is. And this is what makes Jon different, is that he actually is maybe, I don't know, the only person who is actually looking at the entire situation of what's going on in Castle Black, and he understands what the problems are. I don't think it's that he doesn't understand. He's
just not communicating.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And it speaks to just the larger theme throughout Jon's chapters in Dance of just alienating himself away from the rest of the Watch, even those guys that are in those leadership positions that he should be communicating with.
Because, I think that's huge. I think that's
exactly
the big problem, is nobody understands what he's doing because he's not explaining what he's doing.
Well, and he hasn't been with them long enough in a position of leadership for them to have great respect and trust in his ability to handle this situation.
Right.
They don't have any faith in him. Yeah, he's 16, and I'm like, I get it. At the same time, I think he's doing as well as he could. Like, his biggest mistake is not communicating and not keeping loyal people in the right places. He's a little bit like Stannis, and it's funny that he's kind of pointing this out to Stannis. Like, Stannis, you can't just go to these clans and just tell them that you're their king and they need to do whatever you want them to do. And it's funny because that in many ways is exactly what Jon is doing with the watch. I'm the Lord Commander, so this is what I'm telling you we're going to do. And it's like,
Whereas,
people kind of sometimes need to know why.
well, or even what he says is you can't go and command the mountain clans. You have to ask. If you
Yeah.
ask, we'll do it. Well, there you go.
Yep.
I think that's the big problem.
Yeah, let's at least talk about it, have a dialogue. And so lastly from Aruna, the giant was running away. Moors won't be. Ugh, Jon's a savage, but he is pretty good at tactical advice, at least where the North is concerned. Rob was too, but do you think he would have had a better go of it had Jon gone as his right-hand man?
Here's what I'm going to say. I think a lot of what Rob needed even more of than what he had. He was lucky because he had Kat, and she understood the situation in the Riverlands and, in many ways, the Westerlands and the Vale and the Crownlands pretty well. What Rob needed was a little bit less of a northern viewpoint, I think, and a little bit more of an overall Westeros viewpoint if he really wanted to win the war. And because his really deep misunderstanding of Walder Frey cost him everything. And Walder is very much a product of the Riverlands, and this is exactly Stannis's problem. You need someone on the ground who understands the situation to give you good advice, and that was exactly what Rob needed. And Jon might have been good for some things, might not have hurt to have him there, but I by no means do I think Jon could have salvaged the Rob situation.
Yeah, definitely would have salvaged it. Wouldn't have salvaged it, but would have been cool to see Jon with him though.
Yeah, it would have. Did we have anything else?
That is all our mail.
Well, if you would like to send us a message about what Jon is doing right or wrong or anything else, you can do so at closethedoorandcomehere.tumblr.com. You can email us at closethedoorand@gmail.com. You can also message us at closethedoorand at Blue Sky Social. Please do like and review us wherever you listen. It really helps new people find the podcast. We would like to thank our Patreons. They help us keep the lights on. If you would like to become a Patreon, you can do so by going to patreon.com/close the door. And with that, I'm closing the door. Get out.